Hello beauties, and welcome back to my corner of the internet. If you are new here, then my name is Mariah, also known as Live Life's Beauty, and if you're a returning subscriber, then hey best friend, that's my best friend. Thank you for joining me on another video. So today guys, we're gonna talk about Jesus. We are indeed. So if you are new here, then you may not know that at the start of this year I started a spiritual / religious journey into Christianity. I've always been brought up as a Christian, however I've never read the Bible. I don't even know what the 10 Commandments were prior to that, and I just thought, you know, just live a good life and that's all you have to do. The end of last year I started to dig a little bit deeper, and then this year I really started to take it serious in reading the Bible, learning about the faith, and not just becoming a Christian by word but Christian by faith. So we're here to just talk about how my journey is going so far. Obviously, if you are not religious or you don't believe in any higher power, then that is absolutely fine. You can click off. You don't have to leave a comment down below telling me anything negative. This is obviously my journey and I'm just sharing it with you guys as I'm going along with it. So as we stand today guys, I am currently just finished Exodus. So when I started off, I basically just started to read the Bible. I started to pray a lot about the Bible and then obviously read the words of the Bible. Now I will say the Bible that I have is this, and I was basically given this years ago from a church. It basically has the church inside it, and this is the King James version, but it is the New King James version, and it basically there's lots of different versions of the Bible, but this is what I had in my house, so this is what I started with. Now my parents do have Bibles that look more like actual Bibles. This just looks like an actual book on a bookshelf, but it is the Bible in a book form. And this is what I had, so this is what I started with, and I will say that this has actually been really helpful because the King James version, that is not the New King James, the words in there are quite old timely, so it is a bit of, you know, like not riddly, but it is kind of a bit harder to break it down and understand if you know don't know about the religion or what the words mean or what certain things in that era was called, whereas this is just a little bit newer. So for example, when we were reading and doing Bible study, obviously most people have the King James version, not the New King James version, and one thing said like a candle, it said like a candlelight thing, whereas this said a lamp light. This has actually been really helpful to me, and I am, you know, doing good reading it. So I will say, as good as that version of the Bible has been in helping me actually break down and understand what is actually being said in the Bible, the way I have managed to actually read the Bible is by I wouldn't say a podcast, but basically there is a Bible on Apple Music and it is called Streetlights, and it is basically the Bible read to you with dramatized music. I was listening to a YouTuber and she basically informed me of it. She said that she will read her Bible and then wherever she's up to on the Bible, she will then go onto the Apple Music and she will listen to that. Now I'm not sure if it's called a podcast or music or whatever, because I just found it, I listened to it and I love it. It's definitely helped me read more of the Bible quicker, like in actual book form. I am still in Genesis. I believe I'm on Genesis chapter, I want to say 38. I don't want to be a liar, but I'm still in Genesis, whereas through listening to the Bible on that platform, I am now in Leviticus. So I didn't realize how much time I spent in the car, because that is basically when I listened to it, just in the car, and you know I've made it all the way to Leviticus, whereas in being able to actually have the time to read the Bible, I'm still in Genesis. Now when I read the Bible or I listen to the Bible version that I'm talking about, I do like to be not alone but not distracted. So it's not something I'll typically listen to with the kids in the car or when I'm running errands with my children. It's mainly something that, you know, if I just have the baby and I'm in the car with him, because he's not going to be talking to me screaming and making noise. He mainly just sleeps in the car or stares out the window. So it really helps me to understand the Bible as well. And whilst they do use some of the old words, they make it very easy to understand exactly what is going on. But again, it might just be, you know, how your heart is able to interpret the Bible, because the Bible is a spiritual thing, and a lot of people do say you have to come at it as a spiritual sense, because if you don't have that, then it will just be gobbledygook and you won't understand what is being said. I am fortunate that I do feel like I have God's presence and I am able to understand what we're reading about, whether it is whether it is the King James version or my new King James version, or the app that I'm listening to it on. So I'm very, very fortunate. So guys, what have I thought about it so far? So I'm currently, as we've said, in Leviticus. However, I'm not all the way through Leviticus. So let's just say I've completed Genesis and I've completed Exodus. Now, when I was going through Genesis, I was at a stump, guys. I'm not even going to lie to you. I was at a stump. Whenever I've heard about Sarah and Abraham, the story goes that, you know, Sarah and Abraham were very old, they could not have children, and the Lord provided them a child in their old age. And you know, that is the story of patience, that, you know, you think it's a really long time to wait, but the Lord will provide what you need. So that is the story that I've always thought about patience. However, when I was reading the Bible, I found out that Abraham, in fact, did not have to wait to have a child with his wife, because his wife made him have relations with her helper, because back in them days, I guess everybody had money to have a helper, and she conceived a child for Abraham. And that was, in fact, Abraham's first child. Then, so many years later, the Lord blessed Sarah with Abraham's child. So that kind of threw me for a loop, because I was just like, everything I've been reading neglected to tell me that part. So what's going on here? Why is it when we're talking about patience, we're talking about Abraham? Now, if you'd have said to me, you know, Sarah was the one who had to wait patiently, then okay, I could have, you know, understood that. Now, Abraham was still an old man when he had relations with, you know, the helper and became a father. However, he didn't, you know, he wasn't, his first child was not with Sarah. So when I was reading on, when he impregnated the helper, Sarah, as human that she is, was not happy about this. You know, whilst at the time she thought she was doing a good thing by allowing her husband to be a father with somebody else's child, I think obviously as the time went on, she realised how hurtful that actually was, and she did not treat this lady nicely at all. And the lady actually had to escape from Sarah with her child and go on the run. And I thought, Sarah was really not a nice person to this woman, and God still blessed her with a child. Like, what do you mean? Like, this is basically like just a lie. Or why would God bless somebody who's so awful, that ill-treated somebody so bad that they had to actually run away with their child, with their own child? And then it hit me. It hit me like a ton of bricks. Just how merciful God is. Because in my human mind, I was like, she is not worthy to have a child. She's not worthy to be a mother. You're blessing this woman who was so evil and horrible to another lady who was carrying a child, that she had to run away and go into hiding. And now you're like, oh, Sarah, bless you, you can have a child. And then I just thought, but that is the Lord. That is the forgiveness of the Lord. Like, that is why the Lord is forgiving, because me as a human, I'm pretty sure that if that was to happen to me, and the one thing that I wanted more than anything in this world, somebody else was carrying for my husband and that was his child, I'm pretty sure I would be not very nice, very bitter, and very unloving towards that situation. But that is the mercy of God. When he calls upon you and your time, it is your time. Now, I'm not saying that he just goes around blessing like really evil people, like that's not it. But you know, the grace and forgiveness of God. So that definitely was a lesson. Another lesson in the Bible that really threw me for a loop was back in them times, a lot of people had relations within their own family. Now, some parts of the world that does still happen. So I do want to be very sensitive when I'm talking about this. Definitely not trying to offend anybody when I'm talking about this. I'm just simply talking about my reaction to reading the Bible as a first time Bible reader. So there was another part in the Bible where there was basically two sisters, and the father, I can't remember the story. I really need to write it down. That's one thing I definitely need to do. Basically they had no brothers or husbands, and I'm not sure exactly what was going to happen to them, but in order to keep the bloodline going, they basically derugged their father, and then had relations with their father. So one night the sister derugged the father and she went and had relations with him. Then the next night she said to the sister, now you need to go in and have relations with father. And when they did this, they were both blessed with children to then carry on the bloodline. And that was also a bit like, whoa. But as I'm reading the Bible, I'm noticing that now that closeness isn't in the Bible. Like, that closeness is not like the father said, come on, let's do it. Obviously they had to do that to their father in order for that to happen. But a lot of people are with, you know, cousins, brothers, sisters' wives, brothers' wives. If a brother dies, then they go to another relative's husband or wife. So that was very eye-opening to say the least in the Bible. But it really does keep you going. At first I did think it was something that I could listen to with my children, and I did think like, oh my gosh, this is really like good, like the dramatized music is really nice in it, and it makes it like an audiobook in a sense, but better, in my opinion. And it definitely keeps me, like, when I leave the car, I have to finish that chapter before I leave the car. Like, if I've parked up and I'm obviously not in a rush to go and get the kids or anything from school, then I will just let that little chapter play till the end. Then I will turn off the engine and leave the car. So if there's like 20 seconds or more, I've got to hear the last 20 seconds. So that was very eye-opening. Obviously Exodus. So in Exodus, it's mainly about Moses' story. And that was also another thing, guys. Like, how many times did Moses have to go to the king? Like, how stubborn can you really be? I think it was about 7 times that Moses had to tell the king to let his people go. You know, all the plagues that the Lord had to inflict upon the king before he listened. And that was just another thing, like, why? I know the Lord did say that he was gonna harden his heart, but I didn't think he was gonna harden it that hard. In like, he had to wait until literally his firstborn was unalived for him to say, okay, take the people and go. So in that Exodus as well, it talks about like the tabernacle. So we're now on to learning about the Jewish faith, which I find really, really interesting. Something that I find really interesting is how, as Christians, are we kind of not doing what is in the Jewish faith if Christians come from the Jewish faith. Does that make sense? So the first faith, from my understanding, is Judaism. So it talks about in the Bible some of the Jewish practices, like not having yeast in the bread for a certain amount of days, keeping the Sabbath, making sure you're circumcised, and all these things. But as Christians, that's not really followed through that I know of, because in my mind I would think that all the things that God said, because some things God says and then some things God says to do for until the end of time, so pass this through to generations. So that's kind of throwing me for a loop at the moment, but I'm finding it very interesting. So I'm going to continue, obviously I'm going to continue to read. I want to read the whole entire Bible, but I'm definitely going to start studying more and taking notes on what I've learned, because even them 2 stories that I've told you, if I'd have written it down, I could have told you the names and, you know, exactly why they had to do what they did. But yeah, so that's been extremely eye-opening as well, just learning about the Jewish faith. It's just all really, really interesting so far. So I'm actually really, really eager to continue to learn and read. Now, what I will say is, like I've said before, in listening to the Bible, I am in Exodus, well, now Leviticus, but with reading the Bible, I'm still in Genesis. What I do hope to do is read the Bible first and then listen to the audio version of it. However, I feel like that would be a longer time span for me, but everybody says, and I do believe, that there is actually, you know, power in actually reading the Bible for yourself, actually opening the Bible, looking at the words, reading the words, understanding the words of the Bible, not just through Audible. So that is definitely something I'm going to be doing. I think I do want to finish off Leviticus though, audibly, and then finish off Genesis, write down my notes, reread Exodus, write down my notes, and then go to Leviticus and write down my notes. So one thing that has also been extremely helpful in this journey is this book. So I have been listening to a TikToker, and she has Bible studies every morning at 5 a.m. I am a bit hesitant to share the TikTok, just because we have had some people in the live that obviously just come to disrupt it. So it does make me feel like, oh, maybe I shouldn't share it in case people that don't have good intentions don't want to just come in to disrupt it. But it's very helpful. So her name is She's on a Budget. So if you go into TikTok and you type in She's in a Budget, at 5 a.m. every morning we do Bible studies, and she reads from this. So whatever day we're on, this is a daily devotional book for adults, so whatever day we're on, we have a passage from the Bible, and then we have the summary of what that passage means, written by Ellen White. So that has been extremely helpful, and she kind of breaks it down if you don't understand it further as well. So what she does is she reads this passage, so it will say the Bible verse there. We will go to the Bible and we will look up that verse, and we will read that verse in the actual Bible. We might read a little bit before it and we might read a little bit after it, just to get a Bible summary of what it is, and then we will go to the book and we will read what Ellen's summary of it is. Now again, she's very, very helpful, because the lady on TikTok, She's on a Budget, always says to go to the Bible. And it's funny because in one of these days we went to the Bible, and where it said that it would be, so here it says you can find it in Philippians 3:8, it was not Philippians 3:8. Now this is not the one I'm talking about, but that's just an example. So when we went to the Bible to fact check it, it wasn't actually that verse, it was like a different verse. So that is just something to be aware of, and why she says, you see, you can always fact check, because people can make mistakes, but this is not, doesn't make mistakes. So that was very eye-opening and good to see. But so far, those are the 3 things that have been helping me on my journey. So the version of the New King James Bible, the Our Father Cares daily devotional, as well as the TikTok, because I do think that plays a massive part in it, because I genuinely like enjoy the conversations that we have over this book through the TikTok. And then I don't want to call it a podcast, but it might be a podcast, the Street Lights podcast that can be found on Apple Music. So that is how things are going for me so far. Now I will say I have added, because as my kids, you know, mama, they see mama do and they want to do, we have got a kids daily devotional, because they see me obviously reading my Bible, and they want to obviously learn about Jesus more too, which is really sad that they didn't actually know a lot about Jesus, but they're still of the age where they are learning, they're understanding, and it is lovely and joyful to see, and they get really excited to read this daily. So this is Our Daily Bread, Kids 365 Days, Meaningful Moments with God. And again, just like my one, it is a daily devotional. So they have a verse of the Bible, they have what that means, we have a fun facts. Today we learnt that Jesus was a carpenter. They didn't know that. They thought a carpenter was somebody who lays carpet but he was obviously a wood worker. And then if we want to find out more, we can go to the actual Bible and read, and it tells us here that we can go to Psalms 11, no, not 11, Psalms 119, and we can read more about what this means according to the Bible. So that has been it, also extremely helpful for the kids and for me. I love the little fun facts that are in there. I love it. So those are the things that I've been doing so far on my Christianity faith journey, and I'm just excited to share it with you guys. Obviously this will not be like a monthly thing, it might be a bi-monthly thing, just to catch up to see how I'm doing and where I'm at, in case anybody else is also on a journey and is wondering, because you know, on a journey we do have doubts, we do have thoughts, feelings and opinions, just like how I was really stumped with the Abraham and Sarah story. Like that did really kind of have me thinking, like side-eyeing it a bit. And then, you know, it wasn't until a few days went by and it really did click, like, well, Mariah, you're not perfect and you're still getting blessed by God, because I'm telling you right now, you just couldn't even count the blessings that have been happening to me through doing this journey. And obviously I'm not doing this journey to gain blessings, I'm doing this journey to have a better life, because the Bible tells us how to have a good life on earth, despite what people may think, that you're just boring and that your life will be boring. It's actually very joyful, very peaceful, and I'm actually seeing things in a whole new light for the better for me. So yes guys, I hope that this was value to somebody. If it was even value to one person, then I'm happy, and the video has served its purpose. So don't forget to live life's beauty, because life is beautiful and it's out there waiting to be lived by you. And hopefully I will see you in another video. Bye.